interview for the Failed Haiku interview series. And Kala, Ramesh, and myself, we are going to conduct it today. And we have a special guest, Michael Rehling. Da, da, da.
Who is that guy?
So, yeah, about Mike, I think I tried to find out some words in dictionaries, but I think dictionaries are not updated well. Maybe they are running short of words. So, but after having some recent experiences and recent interaction with Mike, I think he has some great qualities. I mean, his dedication, his devotion, his passion, his compassion, his kindness, his wittiness, his affection, his love, and his humor. You name it. I mean, he is the combination of all these great qualities. And Mike did not bribe me to say all this. Let me be very clear on that. So before I ask Kala to share her experience with Mike, I want to say that it's a great privilege and honor for me to be with two great names from the haiku world. Kala herself, she is a role model and a great inspiration to all of us. And thank you guys for having me. And now I'm going to stop now. And Kala, say something about Mike. And it should be something else.
Thank you, Hifsa. Mike, thank you so much for giving us this honor to interview you. It's nice. It's a beautiful feeling. And when Hifsa told me, and I said, yes, we'll do it. Well, both of us, we can do it. And then I said, to interview you, who has been so well known, not because of what you are or what you did, but what you have done for the haiku world. And I've been there and I've witnessed so much of what you have done. And your bio says, a quiet vegan, and I wouldn't say you're quiet. You've created waves all over. And thank you so much. I would now like to go to the first question. And of course, I would like to say, I'm sure our viewers and our failed haiku enthusiasts would love to know who the hell is Mike Rehling. And so please give us a background or talk about your childhood days or whatever it is you want to tell us about. Thank you, Mike.
Well,
over to you.
Good, thank you. You guys flatter me, but I thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. This was your idea, and I couldn't say no because you both consented to be interviewed by me. It's hard for me to say no, so no problem. Though, if I was going to be interviewed by anyone, it's gonna. You two are great, good choices. But no, I'm from Michigan. That's pretty much where I was born and raised. But my family, my grandfather came over here when he was 10 years old, just before World War I, and they were displaced persons. They were Hifsa refugees. They had nothing. And when I say nothing, my grandfather, when he was a kid, he picked apples and peaches up in the Thumb area of Michigan, and he had no place to sleep, so he would clean up at the general store if they allowed him to sleep in front of the stove at night. Now they wouldn't let him put wood in the stove, but the stove would be warm enough to last a good piece of time. And then when he was 15 years old, he's my idol, so that's why I'm telling you this.
Yes.
15 years old, he went to work for a startup company in Flint, Michigan called General Motors. You might have heard of it.
Yes.
And he was a carpenter. When people in his family, my grandmother used to remind us constantly we were peasant stock. He said, "Don't you be." Don't you be putting on any airs, kids. You're peasant stock. Both of my grandmothers were maids in wealthy people's homes in Detroit. And but my grandfather wound up over the years. He stayed for 35 years, and he wound up, believe it or not, as an executive at General Motors, working
Fantastic.
in the design studio. And to his dying day, he lived to be 96. I'm hoping to emulate him. He kept a English to German dictionary because he never went past maybe the 3rd or 4th grade. That's what I learned. So when as I was growing up, we were very fortunate. You know, we never starved. We never, and I wouldn't have known. My grandparents would never, and my parents would never have told us if we had a problem. They wouldn't have mentioned it. But when my wife and I got married, and that's the biggest part of the story is that she's in the other room. I don't think she can hear this, but she's the big influence on my life. Knowing my wife for 58 years, and we've been together for over 50, married for over 48 years, 2 great kids. And I'm still peasant stock. I'm never going to be. And we live in the woods, in the middle of, we got about 6-7 acres of oak forest. And so when I tell people that's my bio that people laugh at, that's all I am. And I am quiet. I'm the quietest person. If I'm not on video or in a haiku meeting, I'm pretty quiet because it's just Ab and I. We just spend our time together. Now I've flown all over the world. I worked at banks and stuff like that. Lucky. And so I've got to go to India. I've been all over Europe. I've wandered all over, been almost I can't think of a state in the United States I haven't been to. Most of the national parks. I've lived in a number of places: California, Arizona, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Michigan, obviously, Moberly, Missouri. So that's who I am. I've just wandered around, and I've had some wonderful opportunities. I've never been unemployed a day in my life that I didn't want to be, but several times I just left. So although I've done a lot of things and been a lot of places, people don't know that about me. That's why I would say they don't know. They say, well, he was a banker. Well, sort of, kind of. And I did mostly lending to small tickets, people. We had a small, we lent to people who couldn't get approved anywhere else. We got them computers. We used to do a lot of that. So those are the things that we've done. I've got to meet a lot of very famous people, but mostly the people that I have met that had the biggest impression on me were the haiku poets that I've met. And Kala, you're one of them. You're a big influence on me. I've known you for 20 years. I've known Hifsa for a few years. But it's been a lot of fun. I got into haiku by accident, like everybody does.
Yes, and Michael, I think you touch a chord in all of us when you spoke about your grandfather, because we have come through. My father was a motherless child, and I know how he brought all 3 of us, and he became a doctor, and he wanted to study further, but he couldn't. And he used to collect 2 rupees per injection, and that is how we all grew up. 2 rupees per injection is, I think it is 70 rupees a dollar. So what is 2 rupees? Nothing. Okay. But your story reverberates, and then I say, my God, we are all, somewhere we join together. We all come together. It is this resonance that happens in our lives.
So, I drove a cab. I drove a cab in the city of Detroit for 2 years.
Look at that.
Yeah, I still have a chauffeur's license just for the joke of it. I've always, and we lived in it. The first house Ab and I lived in really, it was an old duplex that was falling down. We rented it. And the only reason I could do it is because he agreed to waive 3 months of rent if I painted this house. It was like a 3-story house.
And you painted it.
Rickety ladders. I think of it today and I think I could have been dead, just trying to save the rent. But that it's a weird thing. I mean, my oldest son said one time, he said, "Dad, I've never known anybody who made as much money as you and as little money as you, one after the other." So I've been on both sides of the coin, and I've learned one thing, and that is that one of my favorite writers, he's passed away a long time ago, and you may not even know him, is Studs Terkel. And Studs Terkel, you look him up, he did interviews with average people. He was interviewing stevedores and iron workers and garbage men. And that's what he did. And they were great books. And to me, that's the thing. The other thing that gets me into haiku and senru, we may as well talk about it. That is actually why we're here. What got me into it is that is you look at the little things that of life and the things that appear insignificant, okay, in your life. And those people are smarter than our politicians. 99% of our intellectuals, pardon me, and I say nothing bad about it. I have PhDs all over my family. What can I say? But all those people have their heads in the cloud. But I come back to my grandfather. He was the most straightforward, honest, kind man.
Wow, this is
Hifsa, over to you.
truly amazing. I mean, I'm just absorbing all these things and various aspects of your personal journey. So now you have mentioned that you are interested in small things. That's why you like this form of haiku, like senryu.
Yeah.
So how did you get interested in haiku? What inspired you? And what sustains your passion for this form?
Well, I tell people this all the time. I should actually find it, pull it off the shelf someplace. Here it's somewhere. Wait a second.
Yes.
Here you go. You want my inspiration?
Player of my.
These were these were haiku books. They were put out by a publishing company called Peter Pauper Press. And they cost $1. They're hardcover books, not great hardcover books, but hardcover books. And I tell you all the time, the haiku in them, not all of them are haiku. They managed to put their poor translations. One time I had, many years ago, Randy Brooks was looking at me reading this book. We were at a cradle thing and he said, "You know, those are terrible translations." I said, "Yeah, but that's all I had. I didn't have anything at the time. It's the 60s. It was 1964. And I was buying my first books for college at the college bookstore. And right by the checkout counter is the Peter Pauper Press for $1 more. And a dollar was $1 back then. It's 1964. It would have been $12 today. There was this book and I bought it. Had a lot of Zen sayings in it that aren't haiku, poor translations. But then I got into it and I thought, well, I'll go to the library. Because I'm out of college with a gigantic library. Michigan State University is absolutely beautiful if you're a haiku poet. It's an agricultural college. And I joke with people, all the trees had tags with their Latin names on them. The flowers bloomed all the time. So I went to the library and I got a copy of Miyamori's book. It's a huge dictionary-like book. He conned the emperor of Japan in the 30s. He said, these Americans they're translating our poetry. And if we don't get a handle on it, their translations are going to going to count and not ours. So Miyamori compiled, I don't know, it's a 900-page book. Not just Basho and Busan and Issa, but all the students of Basho, Kiori, and others, and translated them along with 1819 plates of art, and he put them together. And I had 2 copies at one time. I've given them away now. One is in Australia, and the other one I think is in India. But I got there and read these 900, and it was, of course, different than the Peter Pauper press. But I started to get interested in it. But for 30 years, I pretty much just did it badly, so badly that I wouldn't show it to anybody. I wouldn't talk about it. And I was off leading my life. I was having kids and buying a house and doing what you do in life. And somewhere in the 90s, I slowed down long enough. So I picked it up again. And about that time, Prodigy and people don't even remember Prodigy and CompuServe. Before there was AOL, before there was the internet, we think about it today with these little dial-up services that, well, on there, as the internet began to grow, I was working for a Japanese bank. I went to work for Sanwa, a $1 trillion Japanese bank. And so I was now doubly exposed. I had Japanese translators running around all the time, and I had people.
Wow.
I was interested in it. And that it slowly happened. And in the 90s, I met, and I say this all the time, it's people need to just understand I have no prejudice against my own gender. But the women of haiku, Francine Parag, just too many people to name. They were just so kind to me. Anya, the World Haiku Club, all of these people were very nice and encouraged me. And that's why the biggest thing, if you're going to be a teacher, and Kala does it, and Hifsa, you do it, is you have to encourage other people to enjoy and support their own work. Whether anybody else reads it, I don't really care. I have tens of thousands of poems, no exaggeration. I've been published well over 1,000 times. Everybody goes, "Oh, it can't be 1,000." Are you kidding me? It took me 30 years to do it. It wasn't like it happened yesterday. But you know, this is the kind of thing that the kind of people that encourage me and help me. And we're going to talk about it, I hope, later. But we did a bunch of things where we just went and hid together on the internet and hung out as poets with no big I's and little U's and no experts. And I am not an expert in anything. I'm not even an expert in being Mike Rehling. Every morning I wake up and surprise myself. I'm a new person, new ideas.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
So I stumbled into it, and you can thank the Peter Pauper Press. Don't recommend you buy them, but I still keep mine.
I was going to ask, where can I find these books? And thank you, Mike, for sharing all these things. And I honestly, I did not read a lot about haiku. I learned haiku by reading the work of other haiku poets. And this is a great secret. Like, you get inspiration, a lot of inspirations, even from beginners. And it's good to know about all these stuff. And I will just make a list of all these books, maybe that historical things, quite a. So hopefully I'll read them and I'll share my experiences, or maybe I'll refine my haiku more after reading this stuff. So Kala, do you have any questions related to another adventure of Mike, that is Haiku?
I do. I'm going to ask him about the haiku hut that he created. It was my second home when he opened the gates to me. And I mean, what can I say? I mean, you were there, Mike, and all the poets were there. We were all like a family, helping each other to grow. How did you think of doing this so many years back? I don't know when it started, but And how many members were there by the time you decided to close up? And it was a shock to me. I don't know about the others. And why did you do it?
Well, we started it, it was early in 2000. I think we started talking about it. Maybe by 2001, we got it up. I have servers. I still do. I still rent my own servers, have my own thing in the cloud. And I had this space and we were on different forums. Marlene Mountain had one. Basho's Beatniks was another. The World Haiku Club was certainly another. I mean, Susumu did a fantastic job of bringing a lot of people together. But they were so large and people would argue. Not well. I mean, you know, and some people were too harsh in their critiques. I'm sometimes accused of being too harsh. Sometimes I'm accused of being too easy. It depends. But we wanted to have a spot, and it was just some of the people. It was you, Kala, Linda Papagiorgio, with
so many. Larry,
Larry,
Susan,
a lot. Oh God, Larry Lee,
Dawn,
so beautiful. She passed away. I have
Lauren Ford.
a
So
beautiful booklet she made for me. I sent her a digital camera because she wanted to do Haiku, and I'm always buying new technology, so I have a bunch of stuff laying around, and I sent it to her. She did a book of Haiku for me.
Yes, she was very good.
Yeah, she's very good. Just before she died.
Yes.
But
It's amazing. It's amazing. And what you created, Mike, it is, you've been constantly doing that. You've been giving a new venue and a new place for people to grow. And I think that is one of your plus points. It's a huge plus point in your thinking capacities. And I think you've done wonders.
now, here's the thing.
Yes.
Here's the thing that I tried to do. It has not little to do with me. I put a platform up, and I set some very basic rules. The most basic one, which I tell people all the time, is the poet rules. If you want to tell Kala you don't like line 2, that you're fine. Feel free to let her know. If you say, Kala, that whole poem, put it in a dumpster. You know, that's okay. You can say that. But in the end, Kala gets to decide when she's done with her poem and what it's supposed to look like.
Yes.
Okay. And people like Lauren Ford was there, Ron Moss was there, Jean Murtha was there.
Linda was there.
Everybody, we had about 65 people who routinely were there all of the time. And when we started, most of us were not great haiku poets. We were not getting published, and Modern Haiku wasn't begging us to submit. Believe me, it didn't happen. But we all were at about the same level. I learned a great deal about Haiku from Ron Moss. We played with Photoshop together. He got his copy, I got mine. We were fooling around with stuff, and but in the end, we treated each other well. And there's lots of people. Jane Reichold jumped in and out. I think and we had contests and stuff like that where I would find some prizes and stuff like that, and we would have contests. We judged each other's poetry before we would enter it into a contest, so you could have other people's opinions. And out of it, Paul Woodward was there, Ray Rasmussen was there, Glenn Coates was there. I mean, I can't list everybody, but we out of silly Haiku Hut, which is nothing more than a little bulletin board system, dozen journals came out. I started short stuff shortly thereafter, did 24 months of that. So it was just a crazy idea, and I don't take a great deal of credit for it. I take a great deal of credit for the fact that if you put together a whole bunch of good people, good things happen. You just have to leave them alone. You have to leave them alone and let good things happen. I'm not going to write like you, Kala, because I don't live your life. But I can, but your life has pieces of mine. And that's what people need to understand about haiku. Bill Higginson, a big influence on me, but he said, you quote him all the time on this. He said, if you don't understand linking and shifting, if you don't understand link verse, you will not understand haiku. And
Absolutely.
At first I didn't understand, and he beat it into my head. He said, I don't care whether you write link verse, Mike. He said, but a haiku is a hoku. And that's how it began. And so if you don't give people anything to hang on to, if all they've got is you, your image, your experience alone, you haven't given them much. Hifsa, that's what you do in your work. You don't give, you give a voice to other people, other situations, and that's what makes you unique, and that's what makes you powerful. Kala does the same thing. And both of you are encouraging positive people to other people. So it's fun to bump into you on social media, either one of you. Bubbly.
Thanks, Mike. I still remember it was a home for all of us. It was beautiful that you.
That was a good place. Good place.
Lovely.
Good
Hifsa,
to have you there.
Hifsa, over to you now.
Yes, there is a question about, and I think I missed a lot back in 2010 and 2011, and there was a virtual haiku on Facebook. Mike, what was the story? I mean, you have 2,800 members over there. I don't know where were I at that time.
I basically did it just the whole idea I have, and it comes through. It's Failed Haiku. It's these interviews. It's everything else. There's so much misinformation about haiku, and so many different things that people want to drag into it that don't belong there necessarily, that aren't rules. And there are so many things that could be in it that people want to exclude because of a rule. So virtual haiku, that is an open site. It's got about close to 3,000 people now in it, 28, something like that. A lot of them are lurkers. You don't realize there are publishing houses, publishers, poetry magazine editors who don't publish haiku. And I hear from them every once in a while. Somebody will message me and say, I'm not understanding. I thought the rules of haiku were X. And I'd say, nah, it's an opportunity to move them over to other places where there's better information. We have in haiku, I mean, there are people like Charlie Trumbull, who's written hundreds of pages. Then there's Michael Dillon Welsh, who's written 10,000 pages or something. I wouldn't even start counting. I'd be able to die before I would get to the end. And besides, he's always adding more. There's plenty of good sources. Anita Virgil is another one who's written a lot about haiku. A lot of people that we have, and a lot of Bill Higginson's stuff and Penny's are still relevant, still around. Chris Kondo and Tadashi Kondo worked with Bill Higginson. So I figured out very early on that the web was where the world is. I'm not against print. I love print magazines. I support as many as I can. But my thing is that if we're gonna do anything, virtual haiku is a way to broaden it so that people out there realize there's something besides this 575 thing you teach to 5-year-olds. Not, by the way, I'll say one other thing. The Nick Vigilio Foundation, the Vigilio contest, Aubrey Cox and I judged it one year. We had almost 3,000 entries from kids. It's all kids, little kids. Blow you away. I mean, just kills you. They're there, and those are all places. The Haiku Foundation is another place that I love. Jim Cation, I can't say enough about. Not only is he a nice person, but he's doing ridiculous things,
Very
much more than me. He it's such a rich site, and it's got a lot of books and things scanned on it, other people's poetry. So yeah, virtual haiku is basically a very broad place. I have smaller groups that I've set up that are more private and more focused. But that the internet is a good place to go. It's free, sort of.
And I think I missed a lot on Facebook regarding haiku because I'm more active on Twitter than Facebook, and there are reasons. I mean, I get lost into notifications. I don't know how to reply all those back-to-back notifications. So yes, it is interesting, and I hope one day I'll contribute in Send You Cycle. If I'm not wrong, Send You Circle, is it? Community on Facebook. What is that? If I is it Senryu
Yeah,
Cycle or Senryu Circle?
Senru
Senryu.
Circle is the other one. That's more focused. I want to keep that more
Yes.
for Senru poets who are already in the game. And that was a silly idea that not a silly idea, but an idea that came up talking to Alan Pizzarelli and Alexis Rotella, both two fantastic poets and fantastic people. That's the nice thing about haiku is you meet people. Alan Pizzarelli is a pistol. I mean, he really is. He is fun to be around, and his books, Mind Zaps and Frozen Socks.
Yes, yes.
Just the titles are enough to keep you going. But Alexis Rotella, Scratches on the Moon, her Hyben that won a Touchstone last year. Those are that was just a silly idea at an HNA meeting. Another thing, I'll give you all the commercials. Haiku North America, although it's not North American anymore because we're going to go Zoom, and Kala's been there. You haven't moved to US, have you?
Have you?
People come from all over the world, but this year HNA is going to be all Zoom, and it's free. So that's going to be a great gathering and a great idea.
It's a great idea.
That's Michael Dillon Welsh, Gary Gay, Paul Miller, and I'm sure there's somebody I'm going to forget who will email me afterwards. But they came up with this idea, and it's been tremendous. And I've gotten to meet Ron Moss in person, and Kala, and just so many people. And I think that if people, it's nice if people like what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is I'm Johnny Appleseed. You're familiar with Johnny Appleseed's story? Not everybody is. Johnny Appleseed was this mythical character a couple hundred years ago in America who walked around with a big bag of apple seeds, and he planted apple seeds everywhere he went, walking around planting apple seeds. And that's how I view myself, but that's how many, many, many haiku poets see themselves. Once you get into it, you see how much fun it is, and you see the community that's there. You want to bring other people in. So, and we are seeds. There's no 40-page poems in haiku. We don't write them. So that's my thing. And I want to enthuse people to do that. And I want to do it, all the world, not just in the US. I think the British Haiku Society is another strong group. Haiku Oz in Australia is another good, strong group. And there are groups in Ghana now, in Africa. You've got some good stuff going. So I think you start to look around. That's what I want to do. And that's what everything I do is about, being Johnny Appleseed for haiku and planting the seed for other people.
Great.
That's very interesting, and I think one thing it's a shame that I never participated in Sandy Circle, but I read the work of other haiku poets, and I learn a lot from them because they are very good and brilliant haiku, and most of them they are not. I think majority of them they are great haiku poets. They are not beginners, and sometimes I read their work and I just learn a lot and maybe some techniques
No,
they
very true.
share. And yes, very dynamic and brilliant haiku. And Kala, would you like to ask about
Yes,
failed haiku, the idea behind
yes.
this great word? Because people used to ask
Mike,
me on Twitter, what is this
yes.
failed haiku? If you got published in that journal, does it mean your haiku is failed? Ah, it means
Uh,
that it's not published
Mike,
in
let
any
me let
other
me come
journal.
there.
What's the
Your
story?
what? I'm sorry, Hifsa. Your virtual haiku, I think, paved the way for failed haiku because it just
Yes.
it just it was an organic feel when I saw failed haiku come into its own. Okay, and it was every month. It was something that you started, and I have said, how am I going to do this every month? Okay, it's a captivating name. What a catchy name that was, and I was clean bold. But tell us, what motivated you to come to the platform to send you a platform at a time when most of the journals lumped both haiku and senryu together as haiku. And that was a very bold move, and you did it beautifully again and again, creating waves. So tell us about it, about your failed haiku.
Yeah, well, failed haiku was a joke, actually, that I told. I went to
It
an
still is a joke.
went to an HNA meeting in Winston-Salem. First time it was there. Robert Moyer was the chief cook and bottle washer for that one. And Alan Pizzarelli gave a presentation on Senryu. And Senryu, by the way, is the way you actually pronounce it, but I've given up trying to convert people. Alan hasn't, but I've given up. It's Senryu, and I've given up. But he gave a presentation, and it was fantastic. And Alan's a great presenter, and he's a funny guy, and to begin with, but he's also an academic. He has that. I don't know that he like hearing that, but he has the quality of being analytical. Alexis Rotilla does too. Alexis is one of those people. She writes these off the cuff, and so does Alan.
Really? Yes.
About human nature, and you think, oh, this is. But they're thinking about it. There's something behind it, behind every Alan Pizzarelli poem or every Alexis Rotilla poem, that is deeper than the smile or the sadness that it brings you. That's the other thing Alan makes clear. So I'm really not an expert at Senryu, but I follow two experts in Senryu, so sort of cool. That's the best I can do. And he gave that presentation outside afterwards. I was just standing there by myself, and some other people were talking about the presentation Alan had given. And somebody turned to me, I don't even know who, can't remember, and said, what do you think, Mike? What do you think a Senryu is? And I said, I just think it's a failed haiku. I was making a joke.
Oh, great.
So you can't write haiku, so you call it a Senryu. And I got some frowns, and I dropped the joke. But the reason I did it, and Kala's heard this because she attended HNA a dozen years later,
Yes.
where I was at, and I told the story. I also wanted the name haiku in the title, because when you Google Senryu, very few things come up. So you might get a couple 100,000. You put
Very smart
haiku,
move.
millions.
Very clever.
So I wanted to be found. I want people to find me. So it's a joke. I actually got probably 4 or 5 people who said, this is ridiculous. I will never submit to you. You're failures. What kind of an idiot are you? I'm an idiot. You know, what do you want? You want to call me one? I accept that. 201, all of those people eventually got around to submitting. They forgave me. But the other thing is, originally started, I was not going to keep doing it forever. I wanted to get 8 to 10,000 center in one place, in a PDF, so that people could access it to see what the form was and how it was moving through the world.
Lovely. Lovely.
It turned out after year 3, I thought, well, now who am I? Let's go for 20. We're way over that now. And I want to say something too. I started with the concept of guest editors, Kala guest editor,
Yes.
and Lori Minor.
Yes.
We've had a lot of Kelly Savage Angel, who is my favorite. She's such a sweetheart and great editor, great eye, and a sense of humor. I've done a bunch of Busans with her. So I got the idea of pulling in
Yes.
guest editors, take a little bit of the heat off me, particularly when I didn't have any internet and I was having some real health problems. So that got me through. And then I've been very happy and very blessed to talk Brian Rickert into being my
Yes.
editor. And he is doing, people get confused. He's taking 6 issues. I take 6 issues because it gets too confusing to have multiple editors and both 2 eyes
Yes.
looking, and Hifsa says yes and Rakala says no, and Mike says maybe. And besides, as a poet, I don't restrict myself. I try not to, but I tend to prefer. I've learned what Paul Miller likes, okay, and I write a lot of it. Not because I'm pandering to him, just that's it. And I've learned what Susan Anton. I think I got a feel for her, and so I submit there once in a while. And Carolyn at Hedgerow, same thing. So
Yes.
I guess what I've been doing more than anything else is I want to make sure now that it perpetuates itself. By the way, all of them are on, not only online on our site in PDF, but they're also online at the Haiku Foundation, and they're also online at the
Fantastic.
Mythology. Can't say enough about Hansateki and Don Baird. Great people. I mean, there's so many good people who've helped me along the way, and those guys have been right there all the time. And so why PDF? I want to say that to people because, why don't you do print? First of all, it cost me $1 million, and Kala could not afford to have me mail it to her in India every
Right.
month.
Absolutely.
Would you pay your $500 subscription? No, but I can.
No.
The PDF goes everywhere, and I wanted to go all over the world. I want people in rural Pakistan who've got a lousy connection. They can download that PDF, stick it on their computer or a thumb drive, pull it up, and read it anytime. Africa, big area. And not everybody has what we have. Now, the irony is I have some of the worst internet in the world because I'm in Presque Isle, Michigan, in the middle of nowhere. But I understand what the pain is. And I value print, but they're limited. So Hifsa, if you send me 5 great poems, I can publish them. Now, modern haiku, it's very unlikely that if he started doing that, he'd have a book the size of a dictionary. He gets a lot of good poets submitting to modern haiku. And I'm sure there's times, I know that Charles Trumbull, we were talking about a particular poet who I appreciated, and he did. And he said, I want to accept everything he says to me. It's so good, but you can't. And that's the other thing I tell people about. I'm not an easy editor. I try and be as kind and nice as I possibly can, and I try and help people if I can. But not everything makes it in. But I wanted the good poems to shine out, and I also want, if Hifsa, you write on certain topics, okay? And some people would say, I don't know if that fits in my journal. I don't care.
Yes.
I don't care. If you want to write about the funniest things in your life or the saddest things in your life or political things in your life, fine with me. When it comes to failed haiku, I have no barriers. On Facebook, I had to limit the politics because I couldn't take the beatings I was getting from both sides. But I wanted to be as open as possible, and I wanted to be able to publish as many good poems as I found. And by the way, unbeknownst to me, accidentally in bumping into Brian Rickert, and I met him at several meetings and stuff, and we've had a chance to hang out together beforehand. And his buddy Ben Gaw, who's written a fantastic book, One Breath. So I got into. I know he's a young guy. He's got a family. He's got a job. I'm retired. I'm old. So, but he's going to be the future of failed haiku. And the other thing about failed haiku, I want to say I wanted PDF, and I also wanted this. I'm moving it toward YouTube more and more and more and more and more, because I want people to meet each other. I want people to see Hifsa smile.
Yes, and it's happened.
I want to see that.
Yes.
It's one thing to look at a picture on Facebook and see it, but I want to see real people. And over my shoulder here, you see the picture, the drawing right here. See that? You know who did that?
Wow.
Radostina Dragosanova's daughter sent that to me for.
Okay.
So that's my picture, and to me, those are the kind of connections I want people to make. And somebody asked me, who's your favorite poet? I said, I don't know. Today, this minute. I mean, there's so many poets that I know now because of failed haiku.
Yes. And you've done it. You've done it, Mike. I think your perception to include, to be inclusive, has made this so open that failed haiku has just bloomed.
Well, yeah, but I will tell you this: my two favorites are print journals, are Mayfly and Acorn, because you can don't have a copy in front of me. You can put them in your pocket and carry them with you.
Yes.
And Susan Antolin is the product of A.C. Messias, who began it. And then when she left, she was stunning. I mean, she was a great writer, fabulous person, good haiku poet. And then Carolyn Hall took over. And Carolyn Hall is great, by the way. New book out. It's a great book. I just sent it to somebody today. But she took over, and I thought, I wasn't disappointed. I knew Carolyn would do a great job because she's a great poet, and I don't know her well. I've met her a couple of times in passing, and probably annoyed her or something. But great person and great poet. But then I saw Acorn stayed.
Yes.
And then by that time, I'm getting used to it. They turned it over to Susan Anton, and I know her, and I knew her, and I'd met her. We'd had dinner at one of the silly HNA meetings or HSA meetings or something, probably HNA. Tends to be more social at HNA. That, so Acorn is sort of my model for moving failed haiku on. And I have another one. Alexis Rotilla has not edited Prune Juice for years, but she passed it on. Liam Wilkinson, and
yes,
on and on and on. Terry
yes.
French, my friend. If I don't mention Terry, I think she'll send me an email and tell me I'm not your friend anymore. Oh, you're my friend. I love Terry. I love Ray. I love their dog Chaka. But she was there. She was actually, this is true story. She was thinking about leaving because it was getting to be too much for her. She was busy, a lot of things happening in their lives. And I was trying to talk her out of it. They were coming to visit us. And I said, well, I'll wait. I I have all these ideas, and I thought, well, I'll sit in the background, do all the formatting. I'll do the website. I'll edit one of the issues for you if you want. I had all these ideas, and one of them, which I haven't done yet, but I'm actually still thinking about, is a weekly, but not monthly. But she came, and before I could say anything, I said, "What are you going to do?" I was about to get her to stay, and she said, "I said, what are you going to do with Prune Juice?" And she said, "I'm leaving, and I've already chosen the editor to replace me." And she said, "Don't worry, you're going to like him. Don't worry." It was Steve Hodge, Michigan boy and a friend of mine, and a great editor. But Prune Juice survives, and it doesn't have, Alexis is not in the middle of it or even on the periphery of actually executing it to this day. She's doing her own thing, by the way. But so I watched Acorn, I watched Prune Juice, and I thought, well, I may as well just keep going, because these things don't die because of a person. And I will make the argument with you. It's not me. I have, do you want to kill Failed Haiku, Modern Haiku, Acorn? We can get rid of them in an afternoon. If haiku poets stop submitting to you, if good poets stop submitting to you, you're out of business. You're out of business. If you start accepting crap, you're out of business, because Kala Ramesh doesn't want to be next to a bunch of junk. She wants to be
No, I don't.
She wants to be in a pile of diamonds, maybe, but not a pile of junk. It's not, that isn't going to work. So as an editor, I think my job is not to tell you how to write poetry. I do not correct grammar, but I will, all but the most egregious, where I know it's a silly spelling error and you just left out a letter, and you know better. I don't correct things. I don't, because your voice, Kala, you speak English very well, by the way. Okay, but you speak English like someone from India speaks English.
Okay.
Right? And I speak English like a crazy Midwesterner. And if you go down to Texas, they sound like this. They don't sound like me. And I lived in Georgia, and I had a boss one time, and I'd come in the office and I'd be all energetic and telling him what was going on, and he would put his hand up and he'd say, "We talk slow down here. We're not stupid. We're not stupid, Mike. But I want to hear every word." Talk about getting a knife right in your heart. But he was a great guy. He was a great teacher in that respect. And I think that, and there are many aspects of people's culture that comes out in their use of language, and whether that, so I am not going to tell people in Africa or in London, they spell words silly, color with a U. What's the matter with those people in England? No, they do it because they do it. And whiskey is spelled two ways. There's the way they spell it in Europe, and there's the way they spell it in the US. Sorry, there's an E or not. Those are the kinds of things. My spell checker will catch those things. By the way, I have every single style manual on the planet. But when I write, and I try and explain this to people, and they always, it's a fight every time. I don't ever use a semicolon. I think it's a stupid piece of nonsense. And go Google Kurt Vonnegut's response to semicolons. But I put a comma. I use a comma to tell you when I want the reader to stop. Just like right now. So I want to write like I talk. And if I want to slow things down, I do. And I don't use caps, and I don't use standard grammar. And by the way, Roberta Beery is one of those who, she taught me to be fearless. She, Marlene Mountain, they didn't care. They would try anything. And as if you saw my interview with Roberta, Roberta is a lawyer by trade. They know the value of a comma more than an English teacher does. And but she will write stream of consciousness and with no caps. And in fact, she's written Hyben with absolutely no punctuation, not a period, not a comma, certainly not a semicolon, nothing, just uppercase, lowercase, spaces. And so I got into, that's the way I want to be as an editor. I want to say, and so I had editors try and correct me all the time. Now it's trying to help me. And I appreciate it. I really do. And then if Kala, if you were to respond back to me and say, this poem stinks and you need to change line 1, or you lost me immediately. No, I take it. I take it from a lot of people. But what I don't take is needless silliness about word choices and topics. There's no topic that's off limits for me. None. There's journals, and I won't name them. They say, we don't accept things that are racist or, well, sort of goes without saying, I think. Does anybody think I'm going to publish that? I don't think so. I don't need to say it. On the other hand, if you want to skirt a topic, you want to take a point of view that's different from my own, 180 degrees. I have friends who are very conservative, very liberal. I'm very liberal on social issues, but I'm also a libertarian. I don't think anybody should tell anybody what to do or think. Nobody should be told what to think. So if you have a thought and you've expressed it poetically, I'll publish it. And I don't have to agree with it. And every once in a while, I get somebody who complains, and I have the standard answer. Go down to the next page. You'll find a poem by Kala Ramesh you'll really like that doesn't attack that topic. So don't worry about it. Just keep on moving down. Anyway.
But you've done it. You've done it in all the things that you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. And we don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah. Now, Hifsa, is anything that you would like to ask?
No, I'm just listening to him because I don't want to interrupt him for further questions because I want to listen to him a lot of things. And I think I'm going to maybe note all these things after watching this interview. Because he's talking about Senryu and his experience with Failed Haiku. So, Mike, would you like to tell us about your favorite themes and what inspires you or touches you when you read or edit haiku?
Yeah, wow. It sort of depends. You hit on it actually earlier on. It's the poems of others that really teach you. That's what will teach you. You know, I didn't know anything about one-line haiku until Marlene Mountain smacked me in the head one day. and I didn't know, I would have told you 20 years ago, oh, politics, things like that, those kind of personal topics. Oh, they're not part of haiku. It's cherry blossoms and frogs and all the rest of that jazz. By the way, I'm one of those who thinks the best cherry blossom poem and the best frog poem haven't been written yet. So don't stop writing them. But I look for things that touch me. And I look for people who have given me a hook in. I talk about her all the time, Michelle Ruth Bernstein. She has my number. She really does. She has my number. She writes stuff and it just resonates with me. Now, I didn't grow up like her. I don't have her background. I didn't go to Princeton. They wouldn't have me, I'm sure. But, but yet, something about her and the way she thinks resonates with me. Okay. And so, that's what I look for, and I look for things that I can stick myself into, and pull something out of. And Eric Aumann said it back in the '60s. He wrote a book called The Wordless Poem, which sounds odd. He was actually talking about Zen and haiku, and it's a wordless poem in the sense that we don't use all the words. I don't tell you, I had this terrible experience yesterday when I went to the grocery store and someone said this to me and it hurt me deeply. And I went home and I told 3 people and they were upset. And we all went back to the grocery store and we got that. No, you get 8, 10 syllables to get that out. But because good poets can do that, and I do that some of the time, but I'm not the greatest poet that I've read. I have 2 students now that they may turn out to be much better poets than I ever could be. They're all kinds of people out there, the poems of others. And I think that I just look for things that we use overused words. I hate the word juxtaposition. It's a bunch of crap, and there's too many syllables for a haiku poet, so I never use it. But even though I just did, but if you look at the Japanese word that gets translated, it's either compare or contrast. I like contrast. There's a contrast, and the contrast is very subtle sometimes, and sometimes it's very dramatic. And so I'm just looking for interesting things, and some things are fun. Alan Pizzarelli can write very sad topics, but he's also a funny guy who can write humorous things about himself. Frozen socks. I love it. Those are the kinds of things that I look for, things that are different and unusual. And even if I wouldn't write it myself, I can appreciate that somebody else had that experience. Sometimes it doesn't have to resonate with me in the sense that I recall something in my own life, but I can see the other person having that experience, and it broadens my sense. So I think I'm nobody in the haiku world. I love you too. You're great. You know I do, but you're being too kind. The people who I appreciate are the poets who create the really good poems. Tens of thousands of poems in Failed Haiku. Yes. And I'm not saying every one would win an award, but there's a lot of good stuff there and a lot of good ideas for somebody to figure out. I also value Frog Pond. Over the years, people like Jim Cation, John Stevenson. I can't mention all my favorites today because we may kill the whole, we may be on here for 12 hours, but both different editors, but with different approaches, different ways of looking at things.
Yes.
And when you look at the books, the volumes of Frog Pond that they edited, they're both excellent. They're both different. And you see that all the time. Brian Rickard is different from me. Not a lot. He's not driving off a cliff, but I wouldn't mind if he did.
You're right.
I don't care. But I'm enjoying what I do, and I enjoy my life. I'm very, very, very fortunate to have lived a life that's had a lot of happiness. If tomorrow lightning strikes,
Lovely.
I had lovely. Don't know what the next one will be like.
Yes, Mike, quickly, what are your plans for Failed Haiku? I'm sure you'll be having a lot of things buzzing in your head. Or you don't want to disclose, or you want to keep them?
I think moving toward YouTube, I'm still going to keep the PDF version and things like that. I still want to do that. I want to broaden the types of things. We had karaoke in here with Susan Birch, and that was great. I want to focus on different ways to approach it. We do a Hyben one every year with Roberta Beery. I hope she'll come back and do it again this year.
Yes.
What I want to do is move it to different corners. And what I'm trying to do, YouTube has a lot of misinformation about haiku, and the Haiku Foundation's there. Haiku Society of America has just begun. I have faith in Jay that he's going to continue to do more things there. I'm hoping that HNA and CBEC, Michael Dillon Welsh's thing, will be more involved, because we have plenty of people. I'll match you one for one every single academic, you know, we have articles written in Frog Pond, Modern Haiku, you name it, the supplements, the old supplements of Acorn,
Yes.
that a lot of academics would latch on to and enjoy and use to teach haiku at the college level. Randy Brooks, of course, does it full time. And what I want to do is try and push those things out onto the internet. It's fine to have books. I had at one time 3,000 items, and I've given away more than 2/3 of it. But I think the key to this, to the future of Failed Haiku, is going to be more of the internet, more multimedia, more meeting people. And Hifsa, I don't care if everybody starts doing these things. People copy, fine. You want to copy me? Go ahead.
Yes.
Knock yourself out. Start a new zine. Lori Miner did. Didn't bother me. Lori's doing a great job. You know, I want more. I don't want less. And I want more avenues and more people editing and more people thinking about it. That's what's important. And I think that the future of Failed Haiku is, I have no idea where it's going to go, but I can tell you it's going to be a lot more electronic in the future. I'm going to start doing readings from each edition, just picking out poems, not the best. I don't like the best of stuff.
Yes.
Just interesting things. This is an interesting poem. It takes an odd approach. That's what I want. Those are the poems that I want to read from other people. And so there's a lot of things, and Brian and I will cook some stuff up and surprise you. But I think he's a great one. He got interviewed here by when Prune Juice started. Tanya gave it. It's to me. There's so many people that are out there influencing me. Tanya McDonald's new print journal too is fantastic. But all of these things, I think, meld together, and we're all in it together. I'm Johnny Appleseed. I just want to throw a bunch of seeds out there and hope somebody picks it up and starts writing haiku.
Yes, great. Hifsa, over to you.
Whoop, you're muted.
You muted.
Hifsa, you're muted. Oh.
Sorry. Okay. So, Mike, tell us, what do you want people to take away from this interview? Anything in particular? Anything on your mind regarding this interview? Maybe you can conclude it in few words.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Real simple. I've had two very good people to share the interview with. Two very good people. And I can't, and it surprised me when you asked me, because this will come as a shock. Nobody asked me for an interview. Yeah, but now you've got it. You got some things out of me. You know some things about me that I haven't shared with other people. And I appreciate the two of you. And I both of you are doing things for haiku in your own way, in your own place, in your own culture. And I am in awe of the two of you.
Oh, thank you. And it's mutual. It's mutual, Mike. I've always admired the way you've carried out things. I've always admired the way you made an idea work. And that is not easy. You've done it. So we are honored. Hifsa and me are honored that we could take this interview. And yes, thank you so
Basically,
much.
It's a sweet revenge. You asked us some tough questions. So it was our turn. And we have taken the revenge.
Thank you both. Thank you both.
And thank you so much, Mike, for
Thank you.
your time.
Thanks,
And I
Hifsa.
came to know a lot about the other aspects of your life. And I think every aspect is a great inspiration for all of us. And I hope we'll continue with you in future with some other interviews or maybe some other themes and topics. And yes, we'll talk about our future work or maybe our projects related to micro poetry. And I hope you will invite us again. Don't invite us.
You have an open invitation. Call me anytime. Thanks,
Well, thank
guys.
you, Mike.